Okay. Fingers crossed that, Fingers crossed. Hi, and welcome back to more Greatest Attorney 2. Also, I need to take a sip of water immediately. I asked the Englishwoman for an interview, but she declined, so I left the hut without making a fuss. Then, watching secretly from outside, I saw the woman being stabbed and the other witnesses come running. The detective realized that the victim still had a pulse, so he ran off to fetch help. That's when this writer here asked the woman a very significant question. But he didn't say anything about that in his testimony, which is why many Memoism demands I reveal it now. Mean to say the victim?
The victim regained consciousness.
And
when she did, you decided to ask her a question.
That's, true, yes. He did. And that's not all. The woman gave him a very definite answer. An answer that incriminates the accused.
This is preposterous. Why am I only hearing about this now? Why didn't you mention this before, you yokel hack?
It wasn't even a conversation. Yes, I did pose the withering English Rose a question. I don't deny it. But she could no longer speak. She was barely conscious even. Counsel for the defense. I expect a thorough cross-examination to be conducted here. This court must and will know the truth.
Absolutely, Your Excellency. The reporter's claiming that Miss Brett implicated Ray somehow. What on earth could have happened in that hut?
I asked the Englishwoman for an interview, but she declined, so I left the hut without making a fuss.
Hold it! You asked her for an interview, you say?
Well, of course I did. I wanted to ask her about the incident she was involved in at the end of last year.
About the case in which Dr. John H. Wilson lost his life?
That's not the way I phrased it. Many Memoism calls for straight talking. Why did you murder Dr. Wilson is how I put it to her.
Yes, that sort of talking is as straight as a ruler.
Ask every question as if you're asking for a menu in the restaurant. I say, it's the best way. A veteran at the paper taught me that.
And how did Miss Brett answer?
With one simple phrase. No. Oh. Mystery is a woman's charm. Phew. That told me, so I waltzed right out of there.
Really? Something about that doesn't quite seem to fit together.
Leave every room as if you're waltzing into a dance hall. I say, it's the best way. A veteran at the paper taught me that. Then, watching secretly from outside, I saw the woman being stabbed and the other witnesses come running.
Hold it! That was very persistent of you, considering that Miss Brett had just turned you away.
Sorry, give me a sec. Persistence wins the prize. Many memoist will tell you that. I'm gonna be tripping over many memoism the entire stream, I swear. Let them think you've left. Then, just when they lower their guard, that's when you swoop in for the scoop.
The fruits of your labor are all too apparent in this telling photograph. Though I'm sure the young yokel student would rather not be reminded of this damning evidence. Actually, it's thanks to that photograph that we managed to identify this witness.
And now that you've found me, I'll tell you whatever you want to know. I've got nothing to hide.
I'm sure. Please, do go ahead, witness. The court is eager to hear what you have to say.
Try to stop me. There's a story to tell here, and I'm going to tell it. The detective realized that the victim still had a pulse, so he ran off to fetch help.
Hold it! And so Seki-san remained behind in the hut.
That's right, yup. Our author friend here was a blabbering wreck, shaking all over from his head to his toes, mustache twitching, eyes bulging. What do you expect? You don't know the terrifying troubles that taunted me whilst traveling abroad. Back behind baleful bars. They'll be coming for me, surely. That's all I could think. I felt as though I were grasping at air, drowning in a sea of cold sweat.
Poor Soseki-san. His experiences in London have scarred him deeply.
As the world seemed to close in around me, I quietly recited a prayer to Amida Buddha. Eternal emptiness, empty eternity. The end is coming for me, surely. No sutras are to resound in my courtroom, please. And now, we come to the crucial part. That's when it happened. That's when this writer man here asked the woman a very significant question.
Hold it! What question? What exactly did he say?
Well now, you should hear that from the horse's mouth, I think. Don't you, Mr. Writer Man?
Outwit at you, yokel hack! What did you say to her? What did you say to the dying Englishwoman?
Well, in truth, I'd been catching crabs at the water's edge and building castles in the sand, you see. Well, the seaside is a place to be at leisure, I suppose. And for a grown man. Then, all of a sudden, from that little beach hut, a young girl's panic-stricken cries for help pierced the air.
Ray.
I ran up to the beach to see what was happening, to find the defendant leaning over the collapsed victim. As soon as Inspector Hosonaga saw Miss Brett on the ground, he sprinted off to get help. And then, just a moment later, I heard a faint moan. A moan from the dead Englishwoman. I nearly jumped out of my skin!
But what did you ask her, Soseki-san?
I asked her, who did this to you? Don't protract this any longer. What did the woman respond? She didn't. She said nothing in response. But On the stand, you will answer the questions asked of you unambiguously. Now, without evasion or reticence, I demand that you amend your testimony.
I will. I asked her, who did this to you? But she never replied.
Hold it!
And so you tried to find out who the culprit was. You asked the question as a fool for a minute. He who does not remains a fool forever. And having been labeled a criminal twice during my time in Great Britain, I was quick to make up my mind. Better to be a fool for a minute than remain a fool in prison forever.
However, you've indicated that the victim failed to respond, is that correct?
I know why. I know why the Englishwoman said nothing. She was ignoring me. Because of my stoop and my mustache, because I'm Japanese. Oh dear. So Seki-san really has developed a dislike for the English, it seems.
For the report on his time in Great Britain, I can't say I'm surprised at his xenophobia. But the Englishwoman didn't ignore you at all. Did she, Mr. Writer-man?
Well, yes, alright. She did respond in a manner of speaking, I suppose. And she just lifted a trembling finger and pointed in the direction of the defendant.
Hold it!
Miss Brett pointed a finger at the defendant. So Seki-san, is that really true? It's not easy to stand here and say this, but when we first entered the beach hut, the Englishwoman was sprawled on the floor before us, with the student girl standing on the far side of her.
Wait, so the opposite?
And when I asked who did this to you, the Englishwoman summoned her last ounce of strength to point a trembling finger at the back of the hut. Which was, it can't be denied, in the direction of the student girl who stands accused today. No.
Seki-san, why on earth did you neglect to mention this in your original testimony?
But, fiddlesticks, I say.
This is not a British court of law. We'll respond in Japanese.
Yes, of course. The Englishwoman did point her finger towards the back of the hut, but I was trembling, and she was trembling, and everything was a blur. And thinking about it, I feel as though perhaps she was pointing in a slightly different direction. Actually, no, not slightly, in a very different direction to where the student girl was standing. Somewhere at the back of the hut, where nobody was standing at all. You mean that your memory of events and the direction in which the victim was pointing are both unclear? Yes, that's it. Unclear. I'm very, very unclear.
Objection! Your Excellency, surely this proves the matter beyond all reasonable doubt. Yes, the woman may barely have been conscious, and yes, perhaps her finger wavered slightly. But there can be no doubt that this was an attempt by the victim to confirm the identity of her assailant. Why? Why? Because the court can see, there was no one other than the accused in the direction the victim was pointing. It's now abundantly clear that no one besides the accused could possibly have committed this crime.
So Mr. Memo stabbed her with the pen. Stabbed her with the pen through the wall in the back, right? That's what we're going with here. I'm inclined to agree. In the absence of any credible argument to the contrary, I believe we can now conclude this trial. But we have a picture of we have a picture taken from the exact point of view that In the absence of any credible argument to the contrary, I believe we can now conclude this trial.
No, no!
The headline's writing itself. Dashing lawyers' hopes dashed. 92 point across the whole page. We'll do an extra edition. This is a serious blow, Susato. Unless we're able to identify the true culprit and substantiate our claim with evidence. The judge will give his ruling and the trial will be over.
But that's impossible, Father. We don't even know how the crime was committed yet.
Possible though the task may seem, we have no choice. We must think back over everything we've learned thus far. Somewhere in all those details, I'm confident we'll find the clue we need.
Ray gave us her account of how the events unfolded in the defendant's antechamber before the trial resumed. She told us what happened at the precise moment Miss Brett was killed. The Englishwoman was sitting at the back of the hut, listening to what I was saying. And then, a moment later, she suddenly got to her feet. Before collapsing on the floor in front of me, with a knife in her back. How could Miss Brett have been stabbed in the back in a beach hut that was empty but for herself and Ray? Somewhere amid all the information we've gathered so far, there must be an answer to that question.
I take it then that the defense has nothing further to add.
So, the gallant yokel student's luck finally runs out. I can't say I'm surprised.
In that case, I'm ready to deliver my final verdict on this matter.
This is a crucial turning point now. If I can't establish what really happened, it's over. Where was the real culprit hiding? And how did he or she stab the victim?
I know how.
Objection!
Your Excellency, I respectfully ask you to postpone your adjudication for the time being.
Why is that word always so hard for me? Oh, what end, counsel?
The defense would like to present the court with an alternative theory. An alternative theory that can explain who the victim was actually trying to implicate with her dying gesture.
Objection!
An alternative theory? Heh, none exists.
Objection!
There was someone else present at the scene who could have committed this crime.
What?
And the victim, Miss Brett, tried to reveal who it was to those around here at the time. By mustering all her remaining strength and pointing a trembling finger in the killer's direction.
This is fiction. Fantasy.
Very well. As you seem so sure of yourself, counsel, I'm prepared to hear your alternative theory. So, young Ryutaro Naruhodo,
Yes, Your Excellency.
present your latest theory to the court by means of this plan. At the moment the victim was stabbed, where exactly are you proposing the culprit was concealed? Like, here?
Take that!
Naruhodo-san would never give up, and I'm a Naruhodo now. The true culprit who fatally stabbed Miss Brett was concealed in this location here.
Are you mad, counsel? You're suggesting the culprit was outside the hut.
What?
Order, order, order.
But student lawyer Naruhodo-san, Esquire, that makes no sense at all. You've just pointed out the exact spot where I was hiding to get my scoop snap. But I didn't see any suspicious individuals loitering about. I can swear to that.
Obviously, if the culprit had been outside the hut, there's no way that he or she could have stabbed the victim who was inside the hut.
Actually, Prosecutor Ouchie, there is a way. Ugh. And, in point of fact, the defense can provide evidence strongly suggesting that it is precisely the way Miss Brett was killed.
You're bluffing. You're bluffing, you yoke.
Vince's assertion is clearly too fantastical for the court to comprehend. You'll need to give us more guidance, counsel. What piece of evidence corroborates your theory that the victim was stabbed from outside the hut?
It's the slit in the wall here, right? Yeah. It's the slit in the wall in the back there. Actually, no. Knowing this game, knowing Ace Attorney in general, it probably wants me to go with this. Hey Squiggles, how are you doing? But I'm gonna present the crime scene photograph because it has the very defined slit in the back there.
Take that!
You're here this time.
Original photographic print of the crime scene.
Yes, it's clearly visible in this print. The trace of the fatal thrust that was delivered from outside the beach hut.
Doing Monster Hunter.
Objection!
Do you take us for fools? There's no hint of any such thing. I'm not sure that everyone present would agree. Someone, at least, appears to have noticed what it is that I'm referring to.
You fell asleep literal minutes before the go-live ping yesterday.
Counsel, once again, I must call on you to be explicit for the court. There on this photograph is the trace of the stabbing which you claim took place from outside the hut.
Right here. It's the little slit.
Take that!
Look closely just here. In the screen at the back of the hut, you can see the effects of a blade having been forced through the reeds.
No, I can't. I can't see any such thing.
It's true that the hut in question had 4 walls as you'd expect. However, by parting the reeds, a knife blade could easily penetrate them.
This is extraordinary.
Yes. The true culprit actually stabbed the victim from outside the beach hut. And everyone present at the scene. There's only one person who could have done that. Only one person who was directly outside the hut when Miss Brett was killed. Right in Memo-san. It could have only been you.
No!
Objection!
This preposterous idea leaves me almost speechless. Just look at the photograph again.
Which one are you talking about, Squiggles? Which animation?
The victim lies almost exactly in the center of the beach hut, does she not? Are we to assume, as part of this farcical scenario, that the assailant was a knife thrower?
Objection!
No, of course not.
We're not.
If you recall the testimony of the defendant about the events just before the victim's death. Inside the beach hut, I confronted Miss Brett. But she just sat on a stool in the back of the hut, smiling sweetly at me as if she knew she was untouchable.
A stool?
Have another look at the photograph.
Oh, yeah.
The slit in the reed screen would align perfectly with the back of a person who was sitting on that stool.
My word. So, in fact, the victim was...
Killed while sitting on that stool by a stab wound to her back delivered through the reed screen.
Ah,
Having been attacked, Miss Brett rose to her feet instinctively. But then, unable to speak, she collapsed on the floor in the middle of the hut. Before the defendant, Mememi-san's appalled eyes.
And that, Your Excellency, is the truth of what happened on the beach that day. By your silence, Memo-san, I take it that you don't deny the charge.
This is absurd.
That will do. It would appear that we have a tacit admission of guilt from the witness. Accordingly, the court has successfully established the truth of this matter, which means that the defendant, Memo-san, is innocent of the crime.
Oh, thank goodness. I finally made him cave.
I must say, I've never been more proud.
No, this can't be. The Ouchie clan can't. What of my growth of hope?
I'm losing Ouchie's voice.
It wasn't all an apparition. I can't accept this. I won't.
I see no reason for the continuance of this trial. I'll therefore move to conclude proceedings by delivering my final
Well, this is all very convenient. This is how the highest court in our mighty empire delivers justice, is it? Suppressing well-meaning citizens' freedom to speak and branding them as criminals. But we've established that the victim was stabbed from outside the hut, through the reed screen walls.
No one but you was in place at the time to have his hand on the hilt of the blade. It's a perfectly logical deduction.
So, your argument hinges on the location of whoever stabbed the Englishwoman, does it? Well, it seems a little irrelevant now. Irrelevant? Where she was stabbed, how she was stabbed. It doesn't matter. I mean, whether she was stabbed at all makes no difference if you think about it. After all, this trial's already shown the whole thing hinges on something else. What are you talking about? Brace yourself, little man. I'm talking about the fact that everything's changed. Because of the dirt you dug up. What?
Enough obscurity. Explain yourself, witness.
What's to explain? I'm talking about the poison, of course.
The poison?
Let's ask the professor for a comment on the situation, shall we? I understand that a deadly poison you were developing was stolen from your laboratory, correct? And it's been shown that this poison was administered to the victim, Miss Brett, is that right?
That's correct. The unusual constriction of the victim's pupils are a sure sign this particular poison was used.
I see. So presumably that means that the victim already had the poison in her body before she was stabbed.
Given that her pupils were clearly constricted, it seems highly likely, yes. If she had been dead already, the poison could not have circulated in her blood.
How refreshing to hear the argument of a metropolitan mind. Precisely. It matters not a jot who stabbed whom in whose back with whose blade.
She didn't die of a stab wound because we don't have a proper autopsy report. We just have like a look over of the body, because at this point in time Japan didn't have like proper autopsies. And so, this came up in the first grade Ace Attorney game. So, essentially, the autopsy, a post-mortem report, says that it's believed to be from the knife stab, but it also notes that her pupils are very constricted, which is a it's a sign that a certain poison was used on her.
Precisely.
Oh wait, we've already read that.
Because, quite simply, the Englishwoman's life was taken not by the knife, but by the poison.
Objection!
But that can be explained by the poison being on the blade, as I already...
Objection!
Forgotten already, have we, yokel? During these very proceedings, the laboratory of the professor at your side assisted in proving that the blade of the weapon used to attack the victim had no trace of poison on it whatsoever.
So let me get this down. The facts, as skillfully established by the defense in this trial, turn out to be a headline-making red herring. Is that about right?
Well...
Also, give me just a second. Order, order. But where does this leave us? How, in that case, did the poison enter the victim's body? There's an undeniably obvious answer to that. Lady most likely imbibed it.
You mean she drank it?
Another look at the photograph here. As you can see, a bottle of carbonated water and a glass had been knocked onto the sandy floor in the beach hut. Poison could have been slipped into either.
So somebody made Miss Brett drink it.
Well, what do you know? Look at those dashing eyes. This will make for a great front page shot. Hey, why the bewitching stare? After all, I'm the last person you should be looking at. It would make no sense at all that I poisoned the woman, would it? I mean, that's been established already. Ugh, sorry. "28 stab wounds." How does the rest of that video go? It's like, he was bleeding, begging you for mercy, but you stabbed him 28,471 times. I'm talking about a stupid meme version of that scene. It would make no sense at all that I poisoned the woman, would it? I mean, that's been established already. Regardless of his guilt or innocence, I vote we convict this guy on the grounds that I don't like him.
Hold it!
Established? What are you talking about?
Don't tell me you've forgotten. That's a little hard to believe, given that the person who established it was you.
Me? What on earth does he mean?
Oh, let me capture those wide eyes. This is prime press fodder, this is. It would seem that this trial is not destined to end yet, after all. Hereby call upon the witness to give further testimony. That's great, that is. Let me get a shot of that magnificent beard, Your Excellency. Deem it to be impossible that you are the one responsible for administering the poison to the victim. You'll explain to the court in your testimony the basis upon which you make such a claim. I'm a journo, and I'm a man. I've never tried to run or hide from anything in my life. And I'm not about to start now, because that's many Memoism.
And for a brief moment, I thought I'd illuminated the truth, but it slipped right back into obscurity again. Just where is this trial going to take us?
So, I think the angle that this is going is that he got the poison when he was doing the interview with these two. He smuggled it out by dipping the fountain pen in it and storing it in the reservoir in the fountain pen. Then put it in one of her drinks. Then left after the he poisoned the drink when he went in for the interview. Then left the hut, went around back, stabbed her, and then made the photograph as evidence to try to get himself off the hook. I think that's the angle that this is going with. Oh yes, I stabbed the Englishwoman, and it's that very fact that proves that I'm innocent. Because why would I have bothered to stab the woman if I'd already poisoned her? When I heard the student girl and that pompous English murderer arguing, it got my goat. If the courts weren't going to punish Brett for what she did, someone else would have to see justice done.
So, you admit it then? That everything happened as I described? That you're the one who stabbed Miss Brett in the back through the reed screen?
You can blame this miserable country of ours. A country that bows to the pressure of foreign powers and lets murderers walk free. What kind of future can a country like that have? That's why I did it. I did what our pathetic leaders didn't have the guts to do. Slap bang in the middle of that charming lady's back, I plunged the blade of sweet justice right in there. As someone who spends his life seeing that the truth is told, I feel really, really awful about giving false information in my testimony before. Hey Taco, how are you doing? But as it turns out, there was somebody else who had it in for the victim and got to her before me. That's right, you guessed it. That pretty little student girl. Now there's a woman after my own heart.
You're implicating Ray again.
And she's the one who gave the poison to the Englishwoman and ended her pitiful existence. And suddenly, snap! This journo here is off the hook. Argument is sound, certainly, but I'm still going to send you to jail because you're being a bastard. Witness had administered the poison himself. He'd only have waited for it to take effect. Subsequently stabbing the victim in the back would have been entirely nonsensical.
And therefore, this reporter had nothing to do with the poisoning. Yes, it's all quite logical.
That's right, it is. Logical and true. I'm glad you've all seen the light. Justice at last.
This is unbelievable. And after I'd made so much progress in proving his guilt, is he just going to get away with it now? Think of Kazuma-sama and Naruhodo-san. They never stopped looking for a way forward until the judge's final gavel.
It's Ace Attorney logic, Squiggles. They don't care. If it's not the if they think it's not part of the active crime that they're investigating, they just disregard it. Unless the prosecution is pushing for it to be noted as important, in which case it will 100% be noted as important. Very well then, counsel, proceed with what I assume to be our final cross-examination in this trial.
Yes, Your Excellency.
Ace Attorney logic is weird. Yeah. I cannot deny that, because Ace Attorney logic is absolutely fucking bizarre. But I love it to death. As much as the last case of the first grade Ace Attorney game did frustrate me, because it felt like it continued on for an extra like 3 hours longer than it should have. Oh yes, I stabbed the Englishwoman, and it's that very fact that proves I'm innocent.
Hold it!
And so, you do admit that you had murderous intentions towards Miss Brett, then?
Ha! The woman's very existence offended my sense of justice.
I need to cough.
Was that the one with the pawn shop man dying in a secure room in a shop? Yeah, that's the, what is it called? The Adventure of the Unspeakable Story, I think is what the case is called. It's really long. And the most bullshit part about that whole case is the part where, Ryunosuke is like, hey, wait, we have this blood test DNA evidence. And Van Zeeks is like, no. He's like, no, that's not admissible as evidence because it hasn't been, like, approved. And then he immediately turns around and is like, but this DNA evidence, this is fine, despite the fact that this is experimental and just was made in Germany, like, last week. And that part in that case pissed me off. Like, not in the cheeky Ace Attorney pissed me off kind of way, in the this doesn't feel like it was very well thought through kind of way.
Your sense of... He's claiming some sort of righteous indignation?
She was pure evil. A cold-blooded killer who'd committed murder right here on our empire's soil. But did our good-for-nothing government do anything? Not a chance. So I had to step in. Fly the flag of justice. Put things right for the people. Yes, it was my civic duty. That's what drove me to it. It's... You say that it makes sense, but, like... The way that they framed, like, if it was, like, a... Oh, you know, we can't use Sholmes's DNA testing because it's not approved, but we have this other, like, well-utilized decently approved thing, it would be fine. But the issue that I have with that specific plot point is that essentially Van Zieks shoots you down for trying to pull out blood testing in the thing, and then out of his ass pulls out this blood testing from Germany and is like, this is a new thing from Germany that we haven't tried here. This is new. And it frustrates me. He's got the, like, Wolverine sideburns squiggles. Fly the flag of justice. Put things right for the people. Yes, it was my civic duty. That's what drove me to do it.
So, in summary, murderous intentions then.
Whatever you want to call it. The point is this. That Englishwoman was a blight, so I had to do what was right for society.
Yet a real wrong was done by the student girl in the dock, a crime for which she must pay.
Obviously, because the poisoning was nothing to do with me at all. That statement took me like 5 minutes to get through just because I kept interrupting. Because why would I have bothered to stab the woman if I had already poisoned her?
Hold it!
That's a minus if you're honest, but he's got a cute face.
And so you still maintain that you didn't give the poison to the victim?
Obviously. That'd be like putting a belt on your trousers when you were already wearing braces like these.
The accused administered the poison, following which the witness stabbed the victim. I can condone you trying to murder this horrible woman, but not the girl.
He looks like a younger Kamoshida. Holy shit, he does! He does look like a younger version of Kamoshida from Persona 5.
An unforgivable act, certainly, but not one of murder. That crime rests on the accused's shoulders. That is how the law works, you see, yokel. Who knows? You may even learn something here today.
I'm about to give you a lesson in humility. 2 consecutive attempts on her life in the space of minutes. Quite a day for the victim. Do something that evil and you've got it coming. That's how the law works. The law of reckoning.
That's not the kind of law this court upholds.
To reiterate why you were compelled to stab the victim then, witness. I think it's the nose. I think the nose is the reason that he looks like Kamoshida, because Kamoshida has that big ass nose. Is attempted murder not illegal in Grade 8 Attorney Japan law? I mean, Ouchie was like, you know, you stabbing her is an unforgivable act, but that's a different crime. And the chin, yeah. Gosh, I need like something to just help me remember to drink water just throughout the rest of the day, not even on stream. Because like y'all are pretty good about reminding me to drink water on stream. But I need something like a notification on my phone like every half an hour that's just like, hey bitch, drink water. Because I think part of the reason that my throat dries out so easily during these streams is that I don't drink a whole lot of water just in general. When I heard the student girl and that pompous English murderer arguing, it got my goat.
Hold it!
What exactly were they arguing about?
About what happened in that restaurant 9 months ago. That's what. The student girl was laying into the Englishwoman for killing her beloved mentor, Dr. Wilson. That's John H. Wilson, professor of medicine, invited here from England by Professor Mikotoba, no less. You have an 80-ounce water bottle next to you and always next to you always, so you just mindlessly drink. I got a nice water bottle and I've been enjoying it. It's just one of those things of like, I'm not used to drinking large amounts of water over the, well, quote unquote large amounts, large for me. At work, you make bottled water for your job, so you have plenty on hand.
Right, but the Englishwoman just jeered.
Your case was to be heard by the British Consular Court in Shanghai. However, there's little doubt that she would simply have been acquitted and sent back to her homeland a free woman.
It was eating that student girl up inside. You could see it. I really felt for her.
I can't. I can't stand here and listen to this tripe. Ray. Young girl, you stand accused here. You can't just blurt out whatever you feel like it.
No, you can't. Sorry, but I'm in the middle of some very important testimony here. Just keep quiet and listen.
But this awful man is making all of this up. Susato, please. You have to make them listen.
Turn to the docket once, Memo-san. Middle of a cross-examination.
Hold it!
Your Excellency, please, I implore you. That journalist is clearly not a trustworthy witness. Exactly. He's a filthy, rotten, black-hearted, bigoted, dirty, great peeping Tom.
Whoa, take it easy there.
Please, I really think the court should hear what the defendant has to say.
The guy next to him is Soseki-san from the first game. I think he has like. Honestly, he's written in such a way that it wouldn't surprise me if he just canonically had a horrible anxiety disorder. Because he is constantly, like, anxious about everything.
Your Excellency, I see no need whatsoever to entertain the accused remarks.
That was a lot of adjectives, yeah. Grant the request of the defense.
But Your Excellency...
This is likely to be the final cross-examination of these proceedings. I said this last time, but it doesn't count. As such, I believe it would be ill-advised to stifle the defendant's obvious concerns. So, whilst recognizing that this contravenes regular protocol, I hereby call upon the defendant to speak.
Oh. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. It was nothing to do with Dr. Wilson. We were discussing the stolen poison.
Hold it!
The stolen poison that killed the victim, you mean? I suspected her of being the one to steal it. I mean, just think about how she killed Dr. Wilson.
It's true. Additionally, Miss Brett certainly had knowledge of the new poison. Surely it would be no easy task to steal a highly secret toxin being developed for the government. Indeed, all visitors to the laboratory are thoroughly searched when they leave. Even if a thief managed to avoid being seen by myself or a colleague, getting the poison out would be very difficult.
It's true. I pestered Professor Mikotoba until he agreed to show me the poison when I visited his laboratory. But as I left, I was searched from top to tail.
Miss Brett rather bluntly revealed the existence of the toxin we'd been developing, you see. Since Soseki-san expressed such an interest in it, I felt unable to refuse. Obviously, I gave nothing away other than the fact that it was an extremely potent substance.
I'm very ashamed of myself. It's just that I've had a singularly terrible experience with a deadly poison. I wanted to look my old enemy in the eye. Surely you can understand that.
To find out if my suspicions were true, I confronted Miss Brett about the poison.
Gosh. I've drunk through like 3/4 of my bottle of water already.
I told her that if there were to be an incident involving it somehow, it wouldn't just be the university. The military would be dragged into it. The whole government even would be a complete disaster.
How did Miss Brett respond to your concerns?
And she just curled those beautiful lips of hers, and she said she didn't know the first thing about it. In English, actually.
Yes. Memo-san. Gosh, why is my throat being weird? One small question, if you don't mind. That's a judge voice, but... I do mind. Can't you see I'm busy? Really, you were outside the beach hut, listening in whilst the defendant and Miss Brett were conversing. Presumably, then, it was you who wrote this article about what you'd heard? Exclusive. Deadly poison stolen from Yume Medical Research Laboratory. The story was published in this morning's edition of Shoyu News. Details are too accurate for it to have been written by anyone else. Sorry, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yes, look at this. The entire article. It's almost what I said to Miss Brett, word for word. Ugh.
So not only did he steal poison and kill Miss Brett, he also plagiarized Ray's words word for word.
Well, Memo-san.
As a journo, and as a citizen of a free country, I do not have to reveal my sources. That's a founding principle of many Memoism.
And Father's clearly right about this. That reporter did write that article, and he based it on what I overheard from outside the hut.
Someone get H-Bomber guy on the case. Such a good video.
And so that's what it was all about. You were trying to cover up the fact that you were listening in. That's why you came up with that stinking story about me arguing with her.
Shut up. My stories never stink. Look. Whatever you say, little girl, it doesn't alter the facts. Your Excellency, there's something I want to say, and I want it to go on record. Well, you may amend your formal testimony. The point is, if you'd poisoned someone, there'd be no reason to then go and stab the person as well. Is that your statement?
Hold it!
And perhaps you doubted the efficacy of the poison, and sought to make sure your victim would die.
That's horse dung.
What?
That would be like pouring pepper on your Chinese ramen before you'd even tasted it. Completely reckless. Although, it may surprise you to learn that I'm a bit of an impetuous pepper pourer as it happens.
Once the victim had taken the poison, she would have been only minutes away from death. And yet, this man then proceeded to stab her in the back as well. There has to have been a good reason for that.
A reporter who gave him the poison to Miss Brett, then clearly must have done it prior to Ray entering the hut.
Yes, that's undeniable.
But between him leaving the hut and the victim being stabbed, there was one very crucial change in the situation.
Sorry? What change?
The reporter overheard the conversation between Ray and the Englishwoman.
Yes, that's it. Or that's it. That's when Memo-san first found out the exact nature of the poison he'd used. That could be the key here.
victim had unwittingly taken the poison already, the reporter would have had no reason to stab her. On the face of it, the logic sounds entirely reasonable.
But there's no question that this man was responsible for Miss Brett's murder.
We can think of a plausible explanation as to why he might have stabbed her even after the poisoning. I feel sure that everything would drop into place. That's what we should be looking for.
Yes, I agree. And in order to do that, I must try to glean more information.
But we've already pressed every statement. You'd poison someone, there'd be no reason to go and stab the person as well. I think I'm supposed to send this because, I don't think that, because if he got all of his information about this from the eavesdropping, he wouldn't have had this information prior. And either would have expected it to act faster or, thought that he gave it in too low of a dose.
Objection!
Well, I can think of one reason.
What?
But before I explain, I'd like you to confirm something for the court. Did you glean all the information for this newspaper article from what you've overheard outside the hut?
How do I think the poison was administered? Either through the drink, like either through one of her drinks, knowing how much Ace Attorney loves its dramatic irony, I could totally see it being in the sparkling water, like how she poisoned Dr. Wilson. Either that, or he poked her with the pen through the hole and then stabbed her with the knife. But that's the stupid thinking that I don't think is proper anymore.
Of course he did. There can be no question of that. After all, when we were all in the laboratory together, all we were told is that it was a terrible toxin. And there's one more important fact to consider. According to the witness, Membami-san's verbal attack against the victim began as soon as she entered the hut. In other words, it would have been impossible for her to have slipped the poison into Miss Brett's drink.
Objection!
Where are you going with this, counsel?
Memo-san has made it quite clear that he observed every single thing that happened in the beach hut. If the defendant had somehow found an opportunity, this man would have seen it.
Which means that Miss Brett couldn't have imbibed the poison whilst the defendant was present. In fact, it must have been administered to her before Membami-san entered the hut. That's very articulately put.
When I walked into the hut, I immediately started to press Miss Brett about the poison. At which point, Memo-san overheard some worrying information.
Worrying information? What worrying information?
The information which he subsequently included in his newspaper article, namely, that the poison was being developed in strict secrecy and that it couldn't be readily obtained.
Absolutely. In fact, that's quite an understatement. Only possible place it could come from is my lab.
And furthermore, anyone afflicted by the poison would exhibit telltale signs of death. The extreme constriction of the pupils. Yes, it's quite stark when you see it. There are other poisons that show similar symptoms, but not among new substances that are undetectable. In other words, it would be clear that the victim's life had been ended by the use of this particular poison, which would reduce the number of suspects to only a handful of people.
Ugh. One in my laboratory is aware of the unique properties of the toxin we've been developing. None of them would be foolish enough to attempt to use it for some nefarious deed. Membe-san being no exception.
Therefore, we can conclude that whoever administered this unique poison to the victim was a layperson, unaware of its telltale properties.
Yeah.
Also, Sachi, completely random thing. Did you see the extremely cursed frame of Ryunosuke that I found while trying to get stuff for thumbnails earlier?
In other words, someone like you, write in Memo.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, it's in the Discord. It's Ryu going goblin mode.
It was you who stole the poison from the laboratory that day. And it was you who administered it to the unwitting victim. But you quickly realized that it was a terrible mistake. Because the poison caused such unusual symptoms. It was so traceable.
It's such a good frame, isn't it? That's the first frame of his animation where he's like slammed up against the wall. It's the first frame of that animation.
As you listened from the far side of the beach hut's thin walls, you learnt of these facts. But you'd already given the victim the poison at that point. It was too late. And so you hatched a plan to disguise your mistake. A plan that involved stabbing the victim in the back through the reed screen.
Objection!
But what good could that possibly do?
Isn't it obvious, Counsel? The plan was to kill Miss Brett before the poison could take effect.
It's in the blood. The poison causes the onset of pupil constriction. But he had hoped to precipitate the victim's death before that happened, hadn't he?
Exactly. Because without any revealing signs of the new secret poison's use, no one ever would have suspected.
This is extraordinary.
Yes, the effects of the poison meant it would be too easily identified, so the killer had to mask its use. Which he attempted to do by plunging a knife into the middle of the victim's back.
Order, order, order. Argument presented as sound. Court is satisfied that it warrants consideration. Prosecution have a counter-argument it wishes to put forward.
Well, there are a number of... yes, I counter completely.
Objection!
The prosecution's evasive response clearly shows that in much the same way as he nurtures the remnants of his top knot, he's clinging to lost hope.
Lost hope?
You pathetic, useless fallen samurai!
Fallen? Who are you calling fallen? My burgeoning growth is...
I don't need a counter-argument!
What are you talking about?
It should be blatantly obvious. I stole the poison, you say? Gave it to the victim, you say? Stabbed her, you say? Lots of fine theories. You actually admitted to that last one, but I don't need a counter-argument, because you don't have an argument yourself. Where's your evidence? Yes, you make it all sound so plausible, don't you? But without evidence, it means nothing. Thank you for giving the Ace Attorney bet you can't prove it speech so that we're gonna prove it and kick your ass. Whereas, I base my news on facts. Facts? What do you mean? Explain yourself. I mean, what the professor said earlier in this trial. It's all here in my many memos. Every word, every slip of the tongue, all noted. That's what Show You News is famous for. The power of the printed word. Surely it would be no easy task to steal a highly secret toxin being developed for the government. What is a fact? Yeah, exactly. Indeed. All visitors to the laboratory are thoroughly searched when they leave. Even if a thief managed to avoid being seen by myself or a colleague, getting the poison out would be very difficult. How's that then? Blown the story wide open? See, I, write in many Memo, a mere reporter from the Show You News. Couldn't possibly have stolen that poison from the professor's laboratory.
But there can't be any question of it. He must have stolen the poison that day. He stole it and used it to kill. And if that's the case, as you've identified, the poison itself is the definitive evidence we need. Because whoever stole it from the laboratory that day is the true culprit here.
What's your point, you annoyingly handsome country bumpkin? Annoyingly handsome.
My point is this. There's only one way that you, Many Memo-san, could have stolen the poison that day.
I've heard enough verbal conjecture now, thank you. What the court must be shown is evidence. What proof do you have that this witness stole the poison on the day in question?
Take that!
The proof, Your Excellency, is this fountain pen.
Fountain pen? Can that possibly be relevant?
These magical pens somehow seem to have enough ink to write many thousands of kanji characters. I believe they arrived in our country for the first time some 15 years ago now.
Ah, I swear by a weasel hair calligraphy brush and nothing else. These newfangled pens are merely a fad.
Well, as a forward-thinking man of words, obviously I love my fountain pen. Suck up a soup? That soup scone? How do you pronounce that, character? Of sumptuous ink, and one's work is awash with words in the blink of an eye. I slipped into different voice there for a bit, but...
That's right. Fountain pens have a small reservoir in the barrel, into which ink is sucked up through the nib of the pen, in order to write with later.
What does all this talking of sucking up ink have? Ah,
And just as it's possible to suck ink up into the reservoir, it's also possible to eject it through the nib again, of course.
My word. This really be?
Well, Many Memo-san. When you saw the deadly poison before your eyes in the laboratory that day, you used your fountain pen, your very lifeblood, to steal some of it, didn't you? By siphoning the poison up through the nib and into the pen's reservoir. Ugh.
Objection!
Sueon? Suion? Something like that, Sachi?
More absurdity. That never happened.
True, we've heard that there are procedures in place to prevent thefts like this from the laboratory. But would anyone have thought to look inside a fountain pen of all places?
No. A little ashamed to say. But for fear of offending our guests, such detailed search would not have been conducted. Well, it's quite startling, I must say.
I remind the court that this pen was found in the clutches of the victim when she died. In other words, it was dropped at the scene by Memo-san. So the crucial question is, when exactly was the pen dropped?
Are you suggesting?
The natural conclusion is that in your haste to act whilst the victim was distracted for a moment, you dropped the pen after you emptied the poison from it into her glass.
Objection!
There could be any number of alternative explanations. For example, the witness could have been using his pen to write down details of his conversation with the victim. And when shocked by one of her outrageous answers, the pen fell from his quivering hand.
Objection!
So not son, but son?
No, that can't be. If it was, how do you explain why the pen was devoid of ink?
What?
As you can see for yourself if you examine the evidence, there would appear to be no ink present in the reservoir. What newspaper reporter goes to interview someone with nothing in his pen? No, the pen was dropped after the poison that filled its reservoir had been emptied into the victim's glass.
Yes, have to say in your defense.
You forgot that he didn't stab her with the pen and inject it that way. Honestly, I genuinely thought for a while that that the angle they were going at for this was gonna be he stabbed her with the pen through the back of the through the back of the tent, and then panicked and stabbed her with the knife afterward to try to cover it up.
Goodness, what do you have to say in your defense?
So this is how our modern justice system works, is it? So what if the ink in my pen runs dry? So what if my pencil snaps? I can always claw my way back into the game. I have plenty in reserve. He has the Wolverine sideburns. Yeah. You claim I sucked the poison up into my pen? That's wild speculation, nothing more. If you thought you could bring down a fine, upstanding citizen with a trick like that, think again.
Looks as though it's going to take one final decisive blow to finish this matter. As I see it, the situation is now very simple. It rests upon whether or not this witness did indeed steal the poison on the day in question. Therefore, it all depends on whether or not the defense can prove that he did with evidence.
I fell in love with yet another song from FF14. One of my friends that started playing FF14 recently, just upgraded out of the free trial and was like, you know, the title screen music for Endwalker is really good. Ha! No such evidence could possibly exist.
Objection!
Memo-san, this is how our modern justice system works. What? In the courtroom, evidence is everything. Something you would do well to remember. Because we are well past the point of speculation at this stage, I assure you.
Locus and exponential entropy. Very well then, I call upon the defense to present the aforementioned evidence.
This is it then. This will be the final piece in the puzzle. The defense can prove, by means of this item, that it was the witness's pen that was used to steal the poison.
Take that!
So, what is in that bottle? Or what is that bottle?
This bottle contains the unique chemical reagent that can identify the poison in question.
Ah,
Yes, that poison is an entirely new synthesis of alkaloids, developed by my colleagues and I. It would be impossible to detect traces of it by any other method.
Or, from another perspective, simply with this chemical reagent, anybody at all could check for traces of the poison.
Reagent? What?
1 drop of the contents of this bottle on the tip of your fountain pen, Memo-san, is all it will take to solve this case beyond all reasonable doubt.
No, you can't. I won't.
Your crimes are bad enough, but at least know when to admit defeat. Your Excellency, the defense requests permission to carry out the test on the fountain pen at once.
Yeah. This isn't my fault. The Empire drove me to do this. Trying to hold its head high as a civilized nation took up, justice, righteousness, justice.
And Susato, with me. I'm there.
They actually just threw him.
Did I do it right? That was a Susato takedown, wasn't it? Not quite. That was a Ryutaro takedown. The instant the first drop of reagent touched the nib on the fountain pen, it was clear to everyone present.
When I saw it there in the lab, the poison, the devil got a hold of me, and I decided to do it on a whim. I excused myself and emptied all the ink down the sink in the bathroom, washing the reservoir out carefully.
And then you waited for an opportunity to suck up some of the poison, didn't you? Into your fountain pen.
Yes, that's right. His sad face also looks like some of Kamoshida's faces. Answer me one thing, Memo-san. When the lesbians come up with their own upgraded version of a wrestling move. Why did you steal it? What purpose? Isn't it obvious? To find out what it was made of and expose it in an article. I mean, it was a secret project after all. Too juicy for a journal like me to pass up.
then why did the Englishwoman end up dead?
I went into that hut intending to quiz her on the situation. That's all, as a reporter. A known killer enjoying full freedom, evading justice by leaving the country. I told her what I thought about it. And she just laughed in my face.
Oh, what's this? A Far Eastern caveman purporting to practice journalism? Really? You must learn the difference between reporting and listening at doorways. Ignorant plebeian.
What did you call me?
This country, with its pretensions to a justice system, to a free press, It's really very depressing. To see our superior ways in the West, yet you lack the mental capacity to emulate them. Get out of here, you oaf. Get out and crawl back into the cave you came from.
That's when I remembered about the deadly poison I happened to have in my pen at the time. Terrible tale. In my head, I knew I should just get out of there as quickly as possible, but I couldn't. I couldn't let her get away with what she'd done, when she clearly had no remorse at all. I suppose it was my journo spirit getting all fired up.
I'd like to ask you something.
Yes.
You often talk about justice. But surely as a journalist, you could have used other means to deliver the justice you sought.
Oh. There's no justice in the press.
Sorry?
After that trial 9 months ago, I kept digging and digging to find out what had happened in that courtroom. And finally, I discovered the truth. It was a cover-up. That's what it was.
A cover-up? What do you mean?
I'd remind you of your position, witness. Be careful of what you say. Oh, come on! Doesn't it strike you as strange? We're suddenly not allowed to convict a foreign national. Consular jurisdiction should never have come into it. And yet that puffed-up Englishwoman was going to sail away in the sunset, into the sunset, a free woman. The only possible explanation is that behind the scenes, some deal had gone down between Britain and Japan.
What sort of deal?
I'd done my research, dug up all the dirt. It was all ready to be published. But you know what happened? The editor just tore the article up. Came under pressure from the government, you mean? If our government is going to let criminals walk free, if they're going to crush the free press, then what choice do I have but to see that justice is done myself?
Let's not forget, Memo-san, that you committed murder yourself, and you tried to lay blame on the defendant's door. I'm sorry, but you're no better than Giselle Brett. The truth is, you have no right to talk about justice at all.
I suppose. Hear that we've reached a conclusion in this trial at last. What's for the defense? Ryutaro Naruhodo.
Yes. Sorry, Your Excellency. Just amusing in a manly way here.
It's almost unbelievable. This is your first experience in the Supreme Court. It was an excellent performance. Truth, it very much reminded me of your cousin's exploits.
Oh, Naruhodo's... Ryunosuke, you mean?
The way he handled the trial 9 months ago, the way you handled this one, it gives me hope that we're genuinely entering a new era of justice in this land.
That's very flattering, Your Excellency.
The defense you put forward today made me feel most keenly. The future of our justice system will be forged by you and your contemporaries. I read that as compatriots. That's not that word.
Thank you.
Oh, Prosecutor Ouchie, you have any final thoughts? Oh wait, it's a chopping block. I was like, wait a sec, what is that? It's like it's got a knife on the top. It's like the thing that you cut your pinky off when you're in the Yakuza. I played Yakuza 0.
Prosecutor Ouchie. I, Takatsuchi of the Ouchie clan, have been bested by a Kello youth, not once now, but twice. If there is any shred of my former self left, it is withered and died here today. Gosh, your journey to cultural enlightenment sure took a while, didn't it? Silence.
Or are you gonna...
Rather than living on in shame, I'll end it all now with this blade. For this is the true path to Ouchieism. Ouchieism?
Hopes that's one hopes that's only the only way in which he'll be modeling himself after the witness.
Sprig of my topknot. The time is right for farewell. Hope is lost forever. Takatsuchi.
He's gonna cut the bit off the top of his hair, isn't he?
Ah!
It just... I love that he wrote a haiku about it. I like that everyone's giving this, like, reverence. Now, in regard to the defendant, remember me, son.
Yes, Your Excellency?
I've reached my final verdict. I hereby find you not guilty. Court is adjourned.
It's over. My heart is still pounding in my chest, though. It's all I can do just to stay standing. Lawyers have such great responsibility. Such a great burden to bear. Don't they, Naruhodo-san? Susato! Thank you. Thank you so much. You were so dashing in there. Ray. And Father. Honestly, I'm so touched by everything you've... Oh no, I think I'm going to cry. It wasn't easy, but together we made it. I was on the verge of tears in the end too. The only reason I'm still here is because of you. Oh no, I can't take all the credit. It took courage to tell the truth in there. You did wonderfully, Ray. So I would have to say that the congratulations belong to you. Susato, don't be so standoffish. Sorry. We're friends, equals, and the trial's over, so no more of this formal super humility nonsense. It's time to celebrate with swagger. Throw caution to the wind. Caution to the... what? I'm the greatest defense lawyer, Ryutaro Naruhodo, and I'm taking you out to the milk bar tomorrow. Or something. Right, I see. I'll, think about it, Ray.
Susato, she's wanting you to ask her on a date.
At any rate, we really knocked the wind out of that horrid man, and it felt so good. Yes, it was so satisfying. It really was. Isn't there anybody else we could throw together?
God, go out with your girlfriend, Susato. You're not looking at me, right?
Oh my goodness. No, of course not. Of course not. Ah, there it is at last. Ray's lovely smile.
It's like every single line that Ray and Susato have together, just it reinforces the interpretation. But for your friend to the very last. As your father, I'm extremely proud of you. Defense attorney Ryutaro Naruhodo?
Thank you, but I couldn't have done it without your help. Anyway, it's time to bid farewell to Ryutaro, I think. I shall miss him in a way, but it's back to Susato Mikotoba now. And so, I'll never see him again then. What a terrible shame. What? What is happening? Ah, Soseki-san and Inspector Hosonaga. I do hope you've been keeping well.
Is that really you?
Yes, I had to change my appearance for, well, obvious reasons, I hope. But it's me. Susato Mikotoba.
I don't. It's so dashing. It's so divine. No. Doubly dashing. Yes, and devilishly divine. Look at you. I had no idea, Miss Susato-san Esquires, that you were locum student Naruhodo-san Esquire's cousin. Astonishingly astounding ace attorney. Roll credits.
Poor Soseki-san. So confused. I still remember the first time I ever met him. He was in a prison cell in London.
Title drop, yeah. This really has been the Great Ace Attorney Adventures, or not Great Ace Attorney Adventures, the Great Ace Attorney 2 Resolve.
What an extraordinary conundrum it was that the unwitting student from Japan found himself embroiled in. But after Naruhodo-san's skillful defense of the Old Bailey, Soseki-san was free to return to Japan.
Okay, for a sec there, I thought that this jury was the wrong jury because Joan Garadeb isn't on there, but I forgot that that John Garadeb takes her place after she passes out because you were accusing her of having thrown the knife that fell out the window and stabbed a olive lady in the back.
But after Naruhodo-san's skillful defense of the Old Bailey, Soseki-san was free to return to Japan. And now he seems to have earned himself great fame as an author.
Stunned. That's a truly impressive disguise. Even I had no idea. And I'm a chief inspector at the police bureau. Who came up with Mr. Turtle, no less. Not sure you should be admitting to that, Inspector. Amazing. You're a woman of many faces, I see.
Just two, really. And this was a once-in-a-lifetime event, I hope. Oh, I'm not a patch on you, though, Inspector.
Well, I am a professional, of course. That man has tuberculosis. Yep, he's been suffering for tuberculosis for the last 9 months.
I do worry about Inspector Hosonaga sometimes. I really do. He should really get that tuberculosis checked out. 9 months ago, when he appeared here at the Supreme Court to testify, he was undercover, disguised as the head waiter of a restaurant.
He did a pretty damn good job, but like...
And then on the steamship to Great Britain, of course, disguised as a sailor to keep us safe on the journey.
He's lived 9 months with tuberculosis.
Though that didn't help you, did it, Kazuma-sama?
I wonder if it's just a situation of like... I wonder if it's something along the lines of just like... Oh, he's just got like shitty blood vessels in his throat, so he coughs and it ruptures blood vessels. Which doesn't sound much better, but... From my perspective, I have to admit that I have mixed feelings about all this. I mean, now the truth has been lost forever. What do you mean? I'm talking about the murder that Englishwoman committed at the end of last year. Ah, yes. It was an English doctor she killed, as I understand it. Chronic bite the side of your mouth syndrome. Every time he coughs, he just has a tendency to accidentally bite the side of his mouth. It's like when you sneeze and bite your tongue. John H. Wilson, yes. And I invited to Japan personally. The mystery is... why did she kill him? Now that the culprit herself is dead, we'll probably never know the answer.
On the voyage to Great Britain, we had a most unexpected encounter. With Mr. Herlock Sholmes, the great detective, I mean.
Yes, I remember Mr. Sholmes well, of course. Ah, my arch nemesis. How lightly you utter his name.
Well, according to the stories published about him in the Adventures of Herlock Sholmes, the detective once had a partner who helped him solve crimes. A best friend. And that man was an exceptional doctor of medicine by the name of John H. Wilson. What? Dr. Wilson? I just can't believe that it's a coincidence. I think that the English doctor of medicine killed here in Japan 9 months ago must have been the friend and partner of Mr. Sholmes. And if that's really true, then the poor girl won't ever see her beloved father again.
As you know, I traveled to Great Britain once myself to study. It was around the time you were born.
Yes, grandmother told me about it.
Returning to Japan, I took up my professorship in the Imperial Yume University. I also serve another role, advisor to the government on diplomatic affairs.
Yes, I was aware of that as well.
In that case, I'm sure you understand. There are some confidential matters I cannot divulge to you.
Could you just tell me one thing? Why did you summon me back to Japan?
Yeah, you're not sick.
It's been 2 months now since I returned. When I left England, it was because an urgent telegram had arrived from Japan. It said that you collapsed with a high fever and you were growing weaker by the day. What? Where did that news come from? That's what I'd like to know. Because after that long sea voyage, I found you in fine health, Father. Was there something in Great Britain that you perceived might inconvenience me in some way? Or harm me? That's really the only explanation I can think of.
Plot twist, he has tuberculosis too. For me, reserve your most cutting glares for your father, Susato. I'm sorry, my dear, I simply can't. Let me go!
Many Memo-san. And so, one throw wasn't enough for you?
I've got one last thing to say before they take me away. Professor! Me? I know the truth. I know you had a hand in what went on. That visiting student's fate. Visiting student? Giselle Brett, you mean? No, not her. Student of law who left for Great Britain 8 months ago. Huh? Huh?
Student of law? He must mean... Kazuma-sama? What are you talking about? What does any of this have to do with Kazuma-sama?
Nobody here in Japan knows anything about it. They don't know that the guy never made it to England, that he died on that steamship, and that he'll never... Yeah. Well, I didn't expect to find him in here. What are you officers playing at? Terribly sorry, Your Excellency. Genuinely, I think this is the first time in any Ace Attorney game other than Investigations that we see the judge as an actual dialogue portrait instead of sitting in the chair. Just coming to tell you that the rickshaw has arrived, Eugen. It's a good job I came by. Yes, thank you for dealing with him, and I'll be there shortly.
Oh, Your Excellency.
Trial's over. I'm not Your Excellency anymore, merely your father's friend, Seishiro Jigoku. May I say that since I saw you last, you seem to have taken on a more dashing appearance. Susato.
Did you know all along? From the start of the trial?
Judge sees everything, Susato. Well, you take the risk. If Seishiro hadn't known and then he'd recognized you. I had a word in his ear beforehand. He's an old friend. So, Seishiro, shall we? Yes. Having ruled on that case, we now have various diplomatic issues to address.
Before you go, Father.
Sorry, my dear, we shall have to return to our earlier conversation at a later date. But well done again, both of you. You did admirably.
Oh, thank you very much.
What did you think of my Seishiro sling, eh? It's been a while since I sent a man flying like that.
Whatever could Father be hiding from me? About Giselle Brett? About Dr. Wilson? And now it seems, according to the reporter, about Kazuma-sama. I'm going to have to bring this up with Father sometime. When nobody else is around.
Judicial Assistant Mikotoba-san Esquires, could I have a word?
Oh, yes, of course, Soseki-san. What is it?
I think perhaps it could be fate that we're meeting again like this now. You see, there's something I need to tell you.
Oh?
I believe that it may be related to the reason why your father summoned you back from England.
This I have to hear. Please, Soseki-san, tell me at once.
I will. As you know, my time in England was terrible. Cursed, I have no doubt. And such awful things I was embroiled in. Thank goodness locum student Naruhodo-san Esquire stepped in. After he secured my freedom, I couldn't wait to get on a ship back here to my homeland. Having arrived in Japan, I submitted a report about my experiences to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The next thing I knew, I had a visitor. It was your father, Professor Mikotoba. He wanted to ask me all sorts of things about my report.
My father?
He seemed to be especially taken with a particular part of the report. Anyway, he left eventually, having thoroughly quizzed me. But it was the very next day that he sent me a telegram
that he sent the telegram asking you to return to Japan.
What was it then? The particular part my father was interested in.
Oh, whoops. I don't really know exactly. But, do you remember them? Those two terrible cases I was caught up in? Hey, Cosbox, how are you doing?
Of course, I could never forget.
Your father seemed to concern himself mainly with the second case.
Did we have 2 cases with Soseki-san?
The second one? You mean the one Mr. Sholmes forbade any of us to talk about in public? Which is why the only case involving you that any member of the public is aware of is the first.
Well, I don't care. I don't have to listen to what the dastardly detective says. Anyway, the point is, it seems that case somehow holds the key to all these curious unanswered questions. That horrific, hideous, heinous case. The case of the haunted lodgings.
That case somehow caused my father to summon me urgently back to Japan. I thought that whole business was over, but it seems I was wrong. And perhaps that was perhaps that was only the start. Perhaps the story is not yet told.
Is our case 2 a flashback case?
So, the mystery of that English woman's death is solved, thank goodness. And having stood in the Supreme Court now, I think I can comprehend a little better. How you must be feeling as you fight for people's freedom in a foreign land, Naruhodo-san. But actually, I'm writing to you today because of another matter. I met Soseki-san and we talked about that second case he was involved in. Father has said nothing to me.
She sounded British
but
this whole
feel
time, I just
certain
can't do a
of it.
British accent.
That case holds the key to some great unsolved mystery. My notes on the case should still be in the office, tucked away at the back of the shelves on the left. Perhaps you might like to look over them again. Today, for the first time this year, it feels as though summer has arrived. The sky is a brilliant blue. It makes me long to see you again. Yours, Susato.
She's talked before? Yeah, she talked in a couple of the case openings for Greatest Attorney 1. She talked in the intro to this case. Wait, what? Huh. Download Steam again because Microsoft has been an idiot and Bethesda games are no longer on PlayStation.
P.S. My girlfriend asked me out to a milk bar. I'll have to tell you later, but like, I defended an entire case by myself over here.
Give me just a minute. I need to go and refill my water bottle. My water bottle's almost empty. So I will be back in just a moment. Okay, I'm back. Pokemon with Guns game is out. Like even the cover art for the for episode 1 is gay.
It was a ghastly tale of a winter's night. One of an invisible killer and a crime perpetrated on the pavement along Briar Road. As the victim lay at death's door, the mystery of just who had stabbed the young lady from behind had been resolved. But no sooner had my friend saved that Eastern Exchange student from his harrowing plight, then in the dim, flickering shadows of gaslight did a second bizarre crime rend the stillness of that very night. I dare say most can still recall the sensational headlines of the day. Haunted apartment of death, the condemned criminal's curse, the dread demon of coal gas. Yet, though the great detective had at once discerned the truth upon his arrival at the scene, it only proved to be the overture that announced the rising of the curtain on a most tragic play.
My name is Ryunosuke Naruhodo. I'm a fledgling lawyer just starting out on my journey. 6 months ago, I arrived as a visiting student of law, having made the long voyage across the sea from the Empire of Japan to here, London, England. And on the way, in quite extraordinary circumstances, I made the acquaintance of a world-famous detective. Currently, I reside in the attic of the detective's own lodgings from where I run my legal consultancy of sorts. I've successfully defended a number of clients in Britain's highest court, the Old Bailey. But since a particularly grueling and unforgettable legal battle 4 months ago now, I haven't returned to the courtroom. In truth, I lost my right to return. That epic trial was just one small part of an epic tale, a tale which was now about to awaken from slumber, thanks to a letter that arrived this morning from my homeland. A delicious smell wafting up the stairs. It must be nearly time for breakfast. I better go down to Mr. Sholmes' suite. Say good morning to the great detective and his flatmate.
Ah, Runo, good. I was just about to call up to you. The bacon's ready.
Good morning, Iris. It smells delicious as usual. Before we eat, though, I have some news. I had a surprise this morning. Shh! Not another word, Mr. Naruhodo. This could be just the abstruse thing for my pre-breakfast stagnation-repelling mental stimulation, my dear fellow. Morning to you too, Mr. Sholmes. Ah, yes. I see. So that's it. I like that he backed up. The truth is as clear to me as day. My faculties of observation have revealed it again. What are you talking about? You, Mr. Naruhodo, you have this very morning met with a surprise. Get away from me, God. Forget. God, I need to play the I games on stream. I've seen all of I-1, but I've been doing my damnedest to not get spoiled on I-2. And it's something that I would like to stream.
Well, is that not the case? Really, my dear fellow, it barely warrants an explanation. Firstly, your hair is particularly unkempt, somewhat reminiscent of a bird's nest. Secondly, you've neglected to fasten the third button of your jacket. Clearly, when considered together, these two facts point to you of being flustered this morning.
Hi, the Somnium Files ruined your life. Positive. It's like, it's one of those things where it's like, I love the first iGame, but it's also one of those games that feels like it would be really difficult for me to play because 90% of the dialogue is voiced in it, and I already know the outcome of the first game and like how everything falls into place in it. And so I feel like it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I would love to stream it, but it also feels like it would be really weird to try to stream. Can I talk now?
But of course, of course. Though don't look for admiration, you though I don't look for admiration, you understand.
My hair always looks like this. It's been this way since I first met you.
Oh, it has?
And the button was ripped off last night, if you remember. By you.
Hurley pulled your button off.
It's not your voice, that's not high-pitched enough.
Ah, yes, I recall the incident now. It was after supper, was it not? As the evening advanced, I picked up my violin and began to play the wailing notes of a most haunting tune. But then, to my utter dismay, the third string snapped. Why did it have to happen? Why? Little wonder, then, that in my vexation, I grabbed the first button I saw and ripped it from its proper place.
Well, I'd like it back now, please. It's troubling me that I can't fasten my jacket.
And it's troubling me that you expect me to know where it is. Somewhere thereabouts on the floor, one presumes.
Helpful.
What matters at the present time, my dear fellow, is simply whether or not my deduction was unerring.
But, Hurley, Runo said it when he came in, didn't he? I had a surprise this morning.
Well, that really is a surprise.
Yes, this man is the pride of the British Empire. The most famous consulting detective, Mr. Herlock Sholmes. There can't be a single person in the world who doesn't know his name.
Alright then, enough of this silly conversation. Come and eat this bacon before it gets cold. And I have a new herbal tea for you to try too. My latest special blend.
Here we have Iris Wilson, Mr. Sholmes' lodger and companion, and pipe bomb supplier. Truly exceptional young girl who's the author of a highly successful serialization here in London. Yes, The Adventures of Herlock Sholmes, as published in Ranced magazine.
So, Mr. Nadahodo, won't you put us out of our misery? What surprised you this fine morning?
Well, I received a letter from Japan.
Oh, from Susie, you mean? Was it really?
That's right. She had some rather startling news, in fact.
Ah, intriguing indeed. You must tell us about it, or tell us all about it over breakfast.
Oh yes, what fun!
Hey, Mr. Sholmes, tell me if you've heard this one before. I am a lawyer. Oh, Mr. Sholmes, about this.
Shh, not another word. Ah, yes, I see. This would be a collar.
for a breed of miniature canine with a particularly long neck, and for winter use. Actually, it's the armband I always wear. It symbolizes my role as a defense lawyer. Precisely, which leads us to but one conclusion. Your arm is, in fact, the particularly long neck of a miniature canine. Starting to wish I'd never shown him this now. Man's barking mad. Messy as always. That machine really is imposing, isn't it? But I can never remember its name.
Hurley calls it his great analytoscope. It can analyze anything at all.
That doesn't really help me. What does analyzing something even mean? Ah, an extremely astute question, Mr. Naruhodo. Sorry? Well, as Iris said, my machine here spits out analysis, results of anything with which you care to present it. But how to interpret those results, that's the key, and I confess I have no idea. Clearly I'm going to have to construct a great analytoscope to solve the problem. That might not help. Sorry, give me a sec. Books, papers, scientific implements. These shelves are stuffed to the gunnels. Miss Susato wouldn't be able to help herself if she was here. She can't stand messes.
And Susie might not be able to stand mess, but she wouldn't dare touch those shelves.
Oh, why not?
Everything's in intricate balance. Hurley spends ages on it. If you were to touch even one thing, the whole lot would come tumbling down. And Susie noticed it was a very delicate arrangement right from the outset.
It could sound like a meeting of great minds. Truth is, Mr. Sholmes just needs to tidy up. Ah yes, Mr. Sholmes' faithful musical companion. Wasn't this violin made by somebody famous?
Yes, it's a Stradivarius. Though, I'm afraid you'll have to save up for 100 years before you could afford one, Runo.
Can you buy it for a song, Mr. Sholmes? I found it at a pawnbrokery, among the forfeited articles. It clearly said Stradivarius on the label. What? The ignorant broker had no idea of its true value, you see, so I paid a mere 55 shillings for it. Yes, I have something of a turn for shopping. Sherlock Sholmes, bargain hunter. But is it really a Stradivarius then? But of course, my dear fellow. It said so on the label. I think perhaps the ignorant broker had something of a turn for selling. Stradivarius violins are really cool. Gets to this time of year, Londoners seem to leave their hearths alight all day long. I love it. There's something very relaxing about watching the flames flit and dance about. Oh, Sholmes, you dumb fuck. But a fireplace in days of summertime is a waste of space. Really no use at all.
Rather like a great detective in days of no crimes and no criminals, Hurley?
But consider this. Instead of a fireplace, a frost place. That's my latest idea. An extraordinary hearth from which emanates a cool breeze in the hot summer months. What do you think? I think if you invented such a thing, your name would go down in history. The principle is extremely simple. One must, of course, light a cold fire in the hearth. Yes, of course. Brilliant. The trouble is, none of the fires I build ever burn cold. How it taunts me. So, as you British say, it's a bit of a damp squib. Okay, I can't be the only one, like, it's still very early on, I understand, but it feels like Sholmes' IQ has dropped a bit. He's gotten slightly dumber. Sholmes' IQ has dropped enough that he thinks IQ is real. These are different pieces of evidence from cases you've solved, aren't they, Mr. Sholmes? Not quite, Mr. Naruhodo, not quite. These trinkets are a selection from cases I've solved with particular aplomb. They're souvenirs of my success. Memories, Mr. Naruhodo, memories. Upping Iris's smoke bombs probably gave him brain damage. Oh shit, you just reminded me. I want to see where Gina's at. I know that she's in prison currently, but I want Gina. Gina is the best character. Iris, what have you done? Like, how goes your plan of breaking Gina out of prison? Really? So tell me about the case in which the bust of Napoleon featured. I forget. Memories, he says. Wonderful, Mr. Sholmes. Wonderful. Don't you know that, there's a USB flash drive hidden in one of 6 busts of Napoleon? I've never watched Sherlock, I just know that it's bad. Yes, the huge metal chest with the lace cloth laid on it, being used as a table for tea and coffee. It's very sturdy, that's for sure, and firmly locked shut.
That chest contains my father's detailed records of Hurley's many cases.
Yes, so I've been led to believe. Though personally, I've never actually seen inside.
And that's the way it will stay. Those papers are a secret between Daddy and me. If you go opening it uninvited, you might find yourself being bitten.
What, is there a beast inside there or something?
Nope, pipe bomb. You'll feel the full wrath of rapidly expanding gunpowder and metal.
Forward to finding out what aroma your tea will have, Iris, every single day.
Well, I infuse a different concoction of herbs from the garden every time, so it's never the same twice.
Call it a concoction, it sounds more like a science experiment than something for tea time.
Oh yes, that's because different blends can have very different properties.
You should sleep soon. I feel that. Like, I'm probably gonna go for another, like, I don't know, half an hour to 45 minutes. Depending on where we find a decent place to stop, but...
And some calm you down, some make you feel jolly, some give you energy. And today's particular blend is something quite special, so you're really in for a treat.
Sounds ominous.
I've laced it with crack cocaine. And blood of the Elder Gods. Ryunosuke, tell me, do you fear the blood of Old Yarnum?
So many different bottles up here on that charming little set of white shelves.
Oh, do be careful, Runo. You mustn't try the contents of any of those bottles, even if you're hungry.
I wouldn't do something stupid like that. Not a child, you know?
Well, I wish I could say the same for Hurley. The other day, he polished off a full bottle of one of my acolytes.
Went places you didn't expect. You didn't expect the sharp right turn into Bloodborne territory. What?
You said he was hungry.
I'll be extra careful.
I can type with my eyes shut, you know?
I can believe it. When the deadline's approaching, you sound like a Gatling gun.
That reminds me of a dream I had the other day. It was such a funny one, it woke me, actually.
Also, can I just say, I don't know if I had the chance to point this out, but down here underneath the text box, there's two little rabbit dolls that Iris has on her backpack. One is dressed as Sholmes and one is dressed as Iris, and it's super cute.
That reminds me of a dream I had the other day. It was such a funny one, it woke me, actually. I was typing for a whole hour in the pitch black, but I didn't make a single mistake.
It's incredible.
But then when it got light, I found that there wasn't any paper in the machine.
Oof. Oof.
Now I wonder if I'd actually been typing at all.
I think you might have just fallen asleep on the job. This is the letter that arrived from Japan this morning, by international post.
Oh, how lovely. Look at Susie's beautiful writing. I wish I could read it.
And how is your judicial assistant faring, may I ask? She's very well, thank you. In fact, according to what she's written, she actually appeared as a lawyer in the Japanese Supreme Court and won a case.
Really? Oh, isn't she wonderful?
A cut above your good self, my dear fellow. I've won cases too, you know. Apparently, Mr. Natsume appeared in the trial as a witness. Natsume. No, I don't recall that name. Oh wait, it's the person who it's the company that makes Harvest Moon. Or localized Harvest Moon, actually. They're the ones that own the Harvest Moon name currently, and that's why Harvest Moon has gone weird places. Of course you do. We helped the man twice. You know, in those two cases that took place on Briar Road 6 months ago? Ah, the mustached, twitchy man, with the somewhat feline eyes and the mustache.
He didn't have two mustaches, Hurley.
Yes, who could forget about those two cases? They made a very deep impression on me. Although I must confess, the details are a little hazy now. Have a good night, Sachi. Very deep impression they made on you, clearly. I mean, the fact that he remembers it at all is a pretty good indication that it made an impression. He usually just deletes the case records out of his brain immediately. So, what was this startling news penned by Miss Susato? Do you remember the case of the haunted lodgings, Mr. Sholmes? Ah, yes. It's very interesting, you know. I don't feel entirely uncertain that a case of that nature did not occur. He's totally forgotten then. Anyway, in her letter, Miss Susato asked that we read over her case notes again and investigate further. Though it took place half a year ago, for what purpose? Because of something that Mr. Natsume said to her, apparently. He suggested that the real reason why she was called back to Japan so suddenly might have something to do with that case of the haunted lodgings. Oh? On Mr. Natsume's return to Japan, Miss Susato's father questioned him about the case, she says. Something Mr. Natsume said appeared to trouble Professor Mikotoba, prompting him to send that telegram.
Oh, that case, yes. It was very strange, wasn't it?
Yes.
And I had compiled the whole story into a nice, neat manuscript ready for publication, too. But then Hurley here was all funny about it, remember? He was very mean. That story must not be published, you said. Very mysteriously as well.
Really? I said that. Are you sure? Do you perhaps know something about it as well, Mr. Sholmes? About why Miss Susato was suddenly told 4 months ago that she had to return to Japan.
It's been 4 months now since we waved Susie off at Dover. It was such a shock, wasn't it? The way she just suddenly announced that she had to go back to Japan?
Indeed it was. Due to a telegram she received from her homeland, I believe. That's right, telling her to return urgently. Yes, because her father had passed away. No. They just said he was suffering from a high fever, the cause of which was unknown. He's not dead. But according to this letter, that news about her father's fever was just a ruse.
A ruse? And so Susie's daddy lied to her so that she'd make the voyage back home? Why would he do that?
I have to admit, I have absolutely no idea. She believes it's almost certainly related to the case of the haunted lodgings. Summoning her back to Japan so suddenly like that. I wonder what Miss Susato's father is hiding.
Hurley, do you know what this is all about?
Damn, that was a fast change. Well, who can say? What? But you said... Please, I have engagements, my dear fellow. My calendar is quite surprisingly full today. And a stringent analysis of the matter would be excessive. Excessive, I feel, even if I were quite at leisure. So, man the fort in my absence, won't you, Iris?
I will, Hurley. Don't worry. And see you later.
He scuttled off rather quickly there. So, Iris, you and I are going to look at the court record, right? I think perhaps Professor Mikotoba isn't the only person hiding something here. So Seki-san was involved in 2 cases, but only one of them was forbidden from being published. By all of the people, or of all people, Mr. Sholmes.
Aha! I found it at last.
Iris, are they?
The notes about the case. That's right. Susie and I compiled them together. The case of the haunted lodgings. Do you want to read them, Runo?
Absolutely. Thank you, Iris. I have no idea what secrets could still be hiding in the shadows of this case. But perhaps if I read over the notes again, something might come to light.
That's the spirit.
And so, Iris and I decided to read over the case notes again together. Everything from what happened to our investigation, and that fierce battle in the court that followed. Reliving every detail. Just need to find a clue. I have all the time in the world. Because of course, no longer allowed to practice law in the courts of Great Britain. Why not? I mean, I can make a decent guess because you threatened to release state secrets to the public. 6 months ago, a mysterious incident that unfolded on the wintry streets of London. A young woman was found lying on the snowy pavement of Briar Road with a knife in her back. Fortunately, her life was spared, but she was unconscious for several days following the incident. The fog was thick and nobody saw her attack her, but by a cruel twist of fate, a visiting Japanese student was walking behind her at the time and was duly arrested. That man was Soseki-san, the man who effected his arrest, Mr. Sholmes. Believing in our compatriot's innocence, Susato-san and I decided to represent Soseki-san in court. After a grueling trial of many twists and turns, finally managed to prove his innocence.
Joyful, joyous, jubilant jubilation!
Was the man's reaction after the trial, but his jubilant jubilation was short-lived. We received a telegram from Mr. Sholmes the following morning. Victim of the Briar Road stabbing has regained consciousness. Hurry to Bart's at once. So Susato-san and I summoned a hansom and headed immediately to the hospital. Rat.
There you are at last.
Good morning, Mr. Sholmes.
I think not.
Oh,
You're late. What on earth took you so long?
your telegram only arrived at 5 o'clock, Mr. Sholmes, and it's a 20-minute ride to the hospital.
That's right, it's 5:30 now. I think we made very good time.
The time is utterly irrelevant. The fact is, I've been waiting for what has felt like an eternity. In point of fact, I myself was awoken at 4 this morning by a telegram boy. And feeling it was somewhat unjust that I alone had been roused at such an hour, I sent one to you.
Well, thanks for that.
Anyway, you're here now, so the victim is over there. She's only just regained consciousness. You should introduce yourselves, and I shall observe from here.
So that's the lady who was found in the snow-covered on the snow-covered pavement with a knife in her back.
Her name is... Ah, yes, here we are. Miss Green.
Her name is really Olive Green, really? Is that really what that was? She's not in here, of course. Oh, interesting. We've got old pieces of evidence back. This rounded wooden figure isn't the most charming, is it?
I don't think that's a decoration, Mr. Naruhodo. It's an artist mannequin, I believe, used when practicing sketching the human form in different poses.
Really? Not exactly what you'd call a typical figurine for that purpose, though, is it?
No, I suppose not. I confess I've never seen one quite so full-figured before.
Well, if you want to draw a full-figured person, it's the right tool for the job. Look, there's a photograph in this frame here.
Oh yes, it's a picture of a young gentleman.
It's to be about the same age as Miss Green, I would say. Perhaps the young woman's special someone, do you think?
My, Mr. Naruhodo. I didn't know you had such a sense for matters of the heart.
None the least. I sincerely said the first thing I thought of. Good morning? hello. I'm a Ryunosuke Naruhodo from the Empire of Japan.
Oh no. Was it your knife that... Are you the man who...
No. I'm a lawyer.
And I'm Susato Mikotoba. Pleased to meet you. Oh no. Was it your knife then? Are you the one? No, I assure you. I'm Mr. Naruhodo-san's judicial assistant. We heard that you'd regained consciousness and wanted to come give you our best wishes. Best wishes? And for me, thank you. I'm Olive Green. I'm an artist. Well, no, that's not right, is it? What I mean is, I'm trying to be an artist. Well, what I really mean is, I desperately want to be an artist. But the truth is, I don't have any talent. You know I don't. It's no wonder I was stabbed in the back.
I don't think it's related, actually.
Gosh, this young woman seems to bend over backwards to put herself down.
Yep, that sounds like an artist to me. I can relate. As an artist myself. Seeing as we're here, we should ask her about what happened from her perspective, I suppose. To suddenly be struck in the back by a blade as you were walking along the pavement. What a terrible experience you had, Miss Green.
It was so cold that day, and the fog was so thick, I couldn't see a thing. That was 4 days ago now, I think. Is that right? Yes, that's right. I'm afraid you've been comatose all that time. But the case has been solved, hasn't it? Well, I've been here in the hospital, I mean.
Indeed it has, my dear madame. Spectacularly, by none other than I, Herlock Sholmes.
Mr. Sholmes, as you well know, it was Mr. Naruhodo's hard work in court that solved the case.
Are you yet to hear what's happened, Miss Green?
Yes, I'm afraid so. A gentleman from the police force is supposed to be coming to fill me in shortly. Oh, I see.
These two voices are too similar. I don't know what to do for Olive's voice.
Me coming around seems to have made everyone frantically busy. I'm so sorry. I should never have regained consciousness. It was selfish of me. Oh no! We're also relieved that you're on the mend, Miss Green. Really, we are.
That kind of attitude. Maybe her surname should be Blue, not Green. Stealing my jokes, Ryunosuke. I was gonna make that same joke. Maybe it's too low-hanging fruit, but I was gonna make the same joke. So, you're an artist, are you, Miss Green?
Oh no, I couldn't possibly claim that. I'm a fledgling artist at best. I mean, I'm a student of art, really, at the Thorndike Academy of Fine Arts. Oh my, an Academy of Fine Arts. Great Britain is such a wonderful country.
Tell me, Miss Green, do you live hereabouts?
Oh no, actually, I don't deserve it, but I have a little flat on Brixton Road.
I see. How very interesting.
Oh no, is it?
Brixton is some 10 stops away on the underground from here. And Thorndike Academy is a mere 3-minute walk from Brixton Town Center. That matter, Mr. Sholmes? Perhaps not, but Briar Road is a far less salubrious part of town by comparison, dwelt in by those of inferior means, including the maleficent Mr. Mustache. Inferior means? I suppose Soseki-san does fit the bill. It struck me as somewhat out of the ordinary for a young fine arts student to be walking around such a district. Maybe put a little English on Olive. I have, like... It's really weird. there are some times where I can kind of muster up a British accent, but like, most times I can't. And I don't know what it is, but there's something about it that just like doesn't click with me. Which is especially weird, you'd think. You'd think that I'd have a British accent down, because, like, I'm half British. Like, my mom's from England, and I speak with British family members a lot. But, like, you know, it's one of those things where it's just like... my younger sister got all of the British, accent baking. That's all. What's this? She suddenly clammed up.
Mr. Sholmes, you should be ashamed of yourself. Prying into a young maiden's private affairs.
Oh dear me, do forgive me.
If you don't mind. I'm being discharged shortly, so I need to pack up my things.
Oh yes, of course. We won't keep you. Thank you so much, Miss Green. Is there a Mr. Narrowfodder here? Mr. Narrowfodder? Narrowfodder now? Well, if you're looking for Naruhodo, the lawyer, that's me, but... Mr. Narrowfodder, good. This is for you. It's a message from Mr. Saucy Nutsmeg. Mr. Natsume sent me a message to me?
But why would a policeman be delivering a message from Mr. Natsume?
Exactly. What's going on? What's a Scotland Yard constable doing playing delivery boy at this time in the morning? What are you waiting for? Let me see that. Oh. Well, this is most unexpected. Is something wrong, Mr. Sholmes? Is something wrong, Mr. Sholmes, he says. Have you not seen this note? No, how could I have? It would seem that London's criminals have no intention of letting the great detective rest. A new case calls. A case of murder, no less. We must depart at once.
Murder?
Call a cab. Time is of the essence. But the trouble is, we yet to read Mr. Natsume's note. I was thinking we ought to pay him a visit in his lodgings once we did. That will be entirely convenient.
Convenient? What do you mean?
It's all here in the note, my dear fellows. The murder we must investigate took place at Mr. Mustache's lodgings. Wait, what? Oh god, how do you pronounce that word? Biacre? Biacre?
I'll hail a cab at once.
It was only yesterday that Soseki-san was in court, and we were dispelling any doubts about his innocence. And now, the very next day, there's a murder in the man's own address? He may very well be the unluckiest man alive. So it seemed to us at the time. We were soon to discover it was worse than we thought. What on earth?
Oh my. The gentleman is deceased without question. He's dead.
Locum student, Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. Mr. Natsume. Oh, why? Why is this happening? Why to me?
I've only just got out of court yesterday. I was finally home after 2 days of misery. And then I wake up the next day to this. No early bird should catch a worm like this. Woeful worm without wiggle. I see you're in high spirits again this morning, Mr. Mustache. Not the horrible airlock Sholmes. Shoo, shove off. Show yourself the door. I never invited you.
Mr. Sholmes came here with us. I'm quite sure he'll be able to help you, Mr. Natsume.
I'm entirely at your disposal, Mr. Mustache. What can I do for you?
Oh, hi, Gregson. They are already. What voice did I give Gregson, actually? Busybodies. I think that's about it.
Ah, Inspector Gregson. What a pleasant surprise.
Pleasant, is it? You heartburn every time I see your face at a crime scene, Sholmes. Are you sure it's not you eating fish and chips all the time, buddy?
I deduce, Inspector, that your heartburn is a result of your excessive consumption of fried food.
Good morning, Inspector. It's a crime scene. Don't you go touching anything.
Or good morning to you too, Sunshine. So, Inspector, what was the victim's name? Who was he?
Mr. William Shamspeare. He was a lodger here. As you can probably tell, he was an actor. Bit of a dead loss as it happens. Or just dead.
Mr. Shamspeare.
It was the landlord, Mr. Old Garadeb, and the other lodger, Mr. Natsume, who found him. Well, it didn't rise at his usual hour, so Garadeb got worried and kicked the door down. This isn't your voice, but I don't know what your voice is.
But doesn't Mr. Garadeb have a bad leg?
Yeah, you're right there. It's a jittery Japanese hunchback over there who actually did the kicking.
Really? So Seki-san.
Victim was pretty hard up, it seems. Even done some time inside for petty crimes. No money, no place to go, and no friends. The acquaintances were the people in his house, or in this house. Miserable life and miserable end to it.
So, what exactly is Mr. Natsume still doing here? He's not involved in the investigation, so shouldn't you have sent him away from the crime scene?
Well, I'm not saying it's because the fellow looks odd or anything, or they'd act suspicious. But I thought it would be prudent to take a statement from the culprit. I mean, cohabiter.
You nearly said culprit there, didn't you?
Oh dear, Mr. Natsume appears to be under suspicion again.
It certainly seems that way. He does just come across as such an odd fellow, doesn't he?
Poor man. How unfortunate.
Wait, can't say much until the coroner gets here. I think that's closer to his voice.
I genuinely just don't remember what voice I gave Gregson.
Don't think the fella's been a goner that long. Body's still warm.
Even if the inspector would allow it, I don't think I could bring myself to touch a dead body.
Boy, I said hands off. I'm gonna mess up my crime scene.
Oh, no, I just wanted to look, that's all.
No chance. If you're kind, you'll mess it up just by looking at it.
Someone's in a bad mood. There's certainly some bad air in here, isn't there? Alright, it sounds like I'd better talk to the inspector first and try to curry some favor. We already talked to the inspector first. What a terrible thing to have happened. It's only been 3 days since I was arrested for the incident on the pavement outside. And then, having finally regained my freedom, it starts happening all over again. Endless existence of excruciating experiences.
So the victim lived here on the ground floor, and your room is just one story up, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. No way, we were neighbors, I suppose.
So did you know the victim, or were you friends? What's the matter with Soseki-san now? It was an innocent enough question, wasn't it? Why does he seem so shaken by it?
Well, I suppose he wasn't a complete stranger. But did he ever invite me to his room? Never. On my honor, I swear it.
What an extreme reaction. You're probably wishing you'd never asked now, aren't you, Mr. Naruhodo?
When we found him here, I felt wretched, which is why I sent word asking for you to come. Through that inspector over there.
Having fun up there, Sholmes? Mr. Sholmes, what are you doing?
Ah, you need only observe to know it, my dear fellow. Investigating naturally.
There's nothing natural about that pose.
Mr. Sholmes, have you made some miraculous discovery?
Patience, my dear madame, patience. We've not been here in this room 5 minutes. So far, all I've managed to deduce is what actually happened.
My goodness. But isn't that everything we need to know, Mr. Sholmes?
Now that you propose the idea, I believe one could indeed see it that way. At the present time, I have managed to draw 2 incontrovertible conclusions. The first, that there was a physical struggle here last night, in which the victim fought for his life.
Mr. Natsume? What's wrong? Is it something that Mr. Sholmes said, or is something that Mr. Sholmes said significant somehow?
No, don't mind me. Forget I was here. And my second conclusion is that there was a poison lingering in the air here last night that passed the victim's lips. Nonsense.
Alright, Mr. Natsume, why are you reacting so extremely to Mr. Sholmes' deductions?
No, please, pretend I'm not here. Invisible, ineffable, inscrutable, insignificant.
Impossible to ignore.
You must tell us everything, Mr. Sholmes. Spare no detail.
But of course. Let the theatrical tragedy before us be unraveled by my great deductions, presented for your pleasure in 2 acts.
Heard some truly astounding great deductions from Mr. Sholmes in the past. No doubt this will be no exception. What miracles will unfold before our eyes this time?
So, my dear fellows, for your delight and wonder, let the curtain rise. For Herlock Sholmes' Logic and Reasoning Spectacular, Act 1.
And as much as I hate to do it to you like this is where I'm gonna end, because this is a solid spot to end. Also, I swear, like, I swear the poison that he's talking, like, if Shamspear died because he was poisoned, it's gonna be like, ah yes, there was a gas leak or some shit like that. But yeah, exclamation point Discord if you want to join the Discord, exclamation point socials if you want to follow the VODs channel or my Blue Sky where I post art. Otherwise, give me just a moment and we'll find someone to raid.
Okay. Ando is streaming Warhammer. I always forget how to spell Ando's username. There we go. Paint and Warhammer minis. Pretty cool. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed. I most likely will not be streaming tomorrow. If I do end up streaming tomorrow, it will be randomizer. It will not be more Ace Attorney tomorrow, if I do end up streaming. Otherwise, oh wait, no. No, I will not be streaming tomorrow. My schedule always messes me up, but yeah. So if I stream tomorrow, it'll be randomizer. Otherwise, assume no stream. And then we should be back to more of this as long as I'm feeling like, as long as my voice isn't tearing itself apart on Thursday. But yeah, I guess have a good one and take care.